Hello everyone, welcome to What If Naruto Was Neglected and Become the Dragon Sage God Part 3. Before we start, please go support Destroyer God 91 for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. Chapter 8. Battle for the Bridge. Recap. Zabuza shot out of the forest like a bullet. He landed about 50 feet off the shore and noticed a 3-inch cut in his sword. He then looked back towards the coast just in time to see a blonde blur barrel towards him. Zabuza barely ducked under a black-bladed sword that otherwise would have removed his head from his shoulders. He turned around to see the same blonde from the forest standing on the surface of the water, about 20 feet from him. The blonde had his large blade sitting on his right shoulder. The blade was huge, maybe 4 or 5 inches thick, but the very sight of it made Zabuza uneasy. The golden pommel seemed to shine abnormally bright, giving the sword a mythic feel. "That's a very nice blade you have there," Zabuza said, a smirk forming under his face cover. "Thank you," Naruto said, spinning the blade around nimbly, "yours is quite the sight as well." Naruto then let out a dark smirk that sent chills down Zabuza's spine. "Now, let's get wild." Recap end. Zabuza couldn't help but marvel at the beautiful blade in front of him as he turned his attention back to Naruto and spoke. "Hey kid, I never did get your name, what is it?" asked Zabuza, making Naruto smirk. "Remember and remember it well, Zabuza. My name is Naruto Strife, wielder of the Buster Sword and heir to Cloud Strife," Naruto said with a grin as he spun the huge blade in his hand before stabbing the hilt onto the ground, cracking the earth a little. "I've heard of you," Zabuza said, his grin growing. "You're the Hokage's eldest child. Rumor is you left Konoha at the age of 5. Looking at that headband, it looks like you went back home, huh?" Naruto let out a low chuckle. "I wouldn't call it home just yet." The blonde then pointed the blades at the demon of the mist, "But yes, I recently went back," Naruto said as he got into his stance. Naruto noticed the slightest of shifts as Naruto confirmed his return to the leaf. Before he could ask anything, Zabuza spoke in a truly terrifying tone. "It's not very often that I get to have a sword fight, kid." Zabuza slid into a fighting stance. "I wonder how good the son of the Red Death is with his sword." Zabuza started emitting a staggering amount of chakra. The dark purple wisps whipped around, greatly disturbing the surface of the water. Naruto responded by releasing just as much chakra as the demon of the mist. Zabuza let out an absolutely maniacal laugh as his chakra collided with Naruto's in a wild clash. "This should be fun," Zabuza said, his evil smirk matched only by Naruto's. With that, Zabuza charged right at Naruto with surprising speed. He swung down on Naruto, aiming right for the boy's center. Naruto lifted his Buster Sword that caught the massive sword, causing sparks to fly. The collision sent a shockwave out that ripped off branches from trees and sent water crashing towards the shore. Zabuza's smirk only grew as the blonde shoved his blade up, pushing the demon of the mist off of him. Zabuza did a quick backflip as the blonde charged with incredible speed. Naruto swung both blades from his right, only to be blocked by Zabuza. His swords cut into Zabuza's blade. The blades were about an inch deep before the former Anbu shoved the blonde back. He then shifted his grip on his sword and did a wide horizontal strike at waist height. As Naruto jumped over the blade, much like he did when Zabuza threw the blade earlier. Only this time Naruto jumped exactly 1 inch above the blade, letting the massive sword pass him by, once again. He landed and took his advantage to strike Zabuza with a crashing strike to the demon's chest. Zabuza saw this attack coming, but wasn't fast enough to move out of the way. Zabuza separated from the blonde for a moment. The cuts were barely deep enough to draw blood, but Naruto was just starting his assault. As Naruto ran right up to Zabuza and slid under the swordsman's first strike. He drifted to the right of the taller man, dragging his blade along the demon's side. These slash were much deeper than the first one, both letting a good portion of blood spill out and run down the Kiri shinobi's side. Zabuza gave the slightest of winces as Naruto cut him, giving the blonde just enough time to attack again. Naruto then spun back around towards Zabuza's face and slashed upwards across the man's chest. Zabuza now had 2 deep wounds across his chest, but the demon didn't flinch this time. Instead he swung his blade, one-handed, and forced Naruto to jump back, but not before giving him a deep cut right underneath his chest. Naruto's concentration was broken for a split second, but that was all Zabuza needed to land a devastating right cross to Naruto's cheek. The blonde went flying 15 feet back and landed on his feet. Zabuza had a massive smile on his face as he watched his blade fix itself from the blood of the blonde. He looked over to his opponent to see something he never expected. Naruto stood up, showing his ruined cloak and shirt to the world. Before Zabuza's eyes, the wound started to steam and close at a rapid rate. Zabuza watched in awe as the wound closed. Naruto's blood did stain his shirt and cloak, leaving streaks of red below the cut in the fabric. Naruto tossed his blade in the air for a moment and Zabuza watched as he ripped the destroyed clothes off his chest to reveal his muscular frame. As the wound finished healing, Naruto extending his hands, leaving his palms facing the sky. His blades fell perfectly into his hands and he blurred out of focus, his speed on display. Zabuza's instincts took over as he whipped around and raised his blade to block the blonde's attack. Amazed by the blonde's speed, Zabuza decided to fight defensively. Naruto appeared to the right of the demon of the mist, but Zabuza was only able to prevent a fatal blow as Naruto cut right into his shoulder. Faster than Zabuza could defend against, Naruto appeared to his left and landed a similar strike. Naruto then spun around Zabuza and slashed across the demon's back. Naruto led a flurry of attacks ensued. These attacks were like a blur as Zabuza was playing damage control at this point, just trying to keep Naruto from killing him with each strike while he waited for his moment to attack. His arms, chest, ribs, and back were all sliced in a flurry of steel and a blur of yellow. With each strike, Zabuza felt stronger. It had been years since someone was able to challenge him in a sword fight, and as he felt each cut or slice, more and more adrenaline poured into his system, giving him the rush only captured during a life or death battle between two warriors. Naruto reappeared and blurred out of focus again, this time striking Zabuza in the back of his thigh, leaving a deep wound on the demon of the mist's right hamstring and dropping him to one knee. Zabuza predicted the blonde's next attack, raising his blade horizontally to block the blonde's overhead attack. Naruto brought both blades down on Zabuza's sword, his swords cutting a few inches into the executioner's blade. He wasn't expecting for Zabuza to use this to his advantage. Zabuza yanked his blade to the right, disrupting the blonde just enough for him to swing his blade out and claim the blonde's throat. As Naruto backed up enough to avoid losing his head, but the shot he took from Zabuza cut cleanly through his jugular and trachea. The blonde's eyes narrowed for a moment before he blurred out of sight once more. He appeared about 5 feet from Zabuza, facing the demon. Zabuza smirked as he watched the blood pour out of the blonde's throat and out of the sides of his mouth. But once again, Naruto's wound began to steam and close. Zabuza looked into Naruto's eyes as the wound closed. Gone were the eyes of a child that had been there at the beginning of the fight. Now he had the eyes of a killer. All of Zabuza's instincts told him to run for it, but his body wasn't responding. He was in too much awe of watching the blonde recover from the fatal wound in a matter of seconds. As the wound finished closing, blood still ran down Naruto's chest and abs. Zabuza had to admit that the blonde looked terrifying. Naruto looked right at the demon of the mist and spoke. "I've underestimated you." Naruto rolled his neck, releasing a series of pops much like he did against Kakashi. "That won't happen again." Naruto said in a cold tone. But before Naruto could charge Zabuza, something smashed into the water next to them. The collision sent tidal waves crashing towards the surface. It pulled the two fighters' attention. They turned to see Kisame Hoshikage standing there with his usual sadistic smile. He was wearing a navy blue cloak with red clouds on it. His sword, Samehada, was wrapped in bandages on his back. "Sorry," Kisame's deep voice cut through the silence like a knife. "I tried to just stand by and watch, but this just looks like too much fun." "I'm sure you two won't mind if I jump in, right?" asked Kisame with a grin. "Give me a bucking break," thought Naruto with a groan before he sighed. He then grew a grin that would scare the shit even out of Orochimaru. Scene change with Team 7. Kakashi, Kushina and Haku had separated from Satsuki, Narumi, Naruko and the other Kiri shinobi. Kakashi was caught off guard by Haku's use of Hyoten. He knew that the bloodline was a native to Kiri, but when the hunter Nin trapped him in her crystal ice mirrors, he was put on the defensive. The fight seemed even at the moment. Haku was trying to catch Kakashi off guard, but Kakashi's experience in life or death situations gave him a great advantage, plus Kushina keeping her on the defensive was also helping as well. He was able to keep up with the hunter Nin's movements and didn't want to tip his hand too early. He noticed the vast amounts of chakra the technique consumed and decided that he should hold back for the time being and let the enemy wear herself out. Kakashi knew that he might have to help Naruto with Zabuza or help the girls with the other Kiri shinobi, so he needed to conserve his chakra. Satsuki, Naruko and Narumi were a little worse for wear. Satsuki had managed to take down 3 of the Kiri Chunin and Naruko 2 and Narumi 2, but they were 3 genin facing 8 Chunin. They were outmatched. Their teamwork and training with Naruto helped narrow the gap, but they were fast approaching their limit and had only taken out a third of the enemies in front of them. Narumi had a few cracked ribs, Naruko had a few bruises, Satsuki had a few deep cuts on her back. Both the Kiri Chunin and the Leaf Genin were curious about Naruto and Zabuza's fight. They heard the constant clashing of swords and could feel the chakra pressure in the air from the fight, but none of them could tell how the fight was going. Naruko, Narumi and Satsuki were fighting very defensively, like Naruto taught them to when they were at a disadvantage. The Kiri Chunin were about to attack again when there was an eruption of chakra sent everyone flying. The 3 girls recognized a portion of the chakra as Naruto's, another portion likely belonged to Zabuza, but there was a third presence that was equal to Naruto's. They were barely able to stand under the pressure, but the wave of golden chakra that sliced right through the trees along the shore nearly killed the Kiri shinobi. They got a clear view of a now shirtless Naruto who had blood all over his chest. To his right was Zabuza who had numerous injuries all over his body, but none of them seemed to bother him in the slightest. The third figure was another man, wearing a navy blue cloak with red clouds on it. He had an absolutely massive sword on his back that seemed to be alive when the Dojutsu heiresses looked at it with their bloodlines. "VHTH, that's Kisum," one of the Chunin shouted in horror. "We need to get out of here now." All of the Chunin seemed ready to shit themselves as they picked up their downed comrades and ran off as fast as they could. The girls wanted to go and help Naruto, but they were terrified. Neither of them had ever experienced this much chakra being released, and their bodies shut down under the smothering presence. All they could do was watch helplessly as Naruto, Zabuza, and Kisum all stared each other down, Kisum and Naruto having petrifying grins on their faces. Kakashi, Kushina and Haku felt the chakra explosion, but refused to lose focus on their opponent. Kakashi trusted Naruto, but the third presence he felt was on par with his and Zabuza's. "I'm trusting you," Naruto Kakashi thought before looking back to his opponent. Kakashi was about to attack when the ice mirrors from Haku's attack formed a complete dome. Kakashi had a bad feeling about his position, but for some reason he couldn't teleport out. "Welcome to my domain, Kakashi-san," Kushina-san, Haku said, as dozens of her appeared around the dome. "This is the final form of my crystal ice mirrors. I am using my chakra to create a separate area that is sealed off from the outside world. This technique has effectively disrupted that teleportation jutsu you had in your back pocket. Now I will end this." The countless Hakus all formed senbon out of ice and launched them towards Kakashi. "Damn it, I should have started back training," thought Kushina as she readied herself, gripping her katana tightly. "Well, this might be a little harder than I thought," Kakashi thought as he ran through hand signs. Change scene: Naruto vs Zabuza vs Kisum. "Ashigaki Kisum," Zabuza said as he eyed his fellow swordsman. "What are you doing here?" Zabuza's tone was extremely hostile. Before him was the lone member of the 7 ninja swordsmen that was stronger than him. Kisum Hoshigaki wields the strongest of the blades, Samehada. Zabuza and Kisum had clashed in the past, the outcome ending in Kisum's favor. "What?" Kisum said innocently. "I can't visit my fellow ninja swordsman and make him an offer." Kisum said, his tone made Zabuza uneasy. "What are you talking about?" Zabuza noticed that his blonde opponent was interested in Kisum's words as well as Kisum spoke. "You see, my group is looking for some select individuals that can help us achieve our goals," Kisum said, his grin growing. "I figure you might be a little weak, but you have a tendency to fight better against stronger opponents. I still have the scars from our last bout." Kisum rubbed a spot on his ribs, while Zabuza gripped his blade tighter as he growled out. "Buck off, Hoshigaki, I'm not interested in joining your fraternity of misfits," Zabuza spat. "You don't even know anything about our group, yet you rush to judgment." Kisum let out a low laugh as he eyed his fellow swordsman. "All I need to know is that you are in it. You're the one person from the blood mist with a higher body count than me." Kisum laughed at Zabuza again. "But times," Kisum growled. "How about this?" he said, trying to offer. "I'll kill this blonde brat and his friends fighting those Chunin, and then I'll beat you within an inch of your life and drag you back with me," Kisum threatened. Kisum released a massive amount of chakra. Zabuza released a staggering amount of chakra, though it was still sizably less than Kisum. Naruto, who had been silent the entire time, released the same amount of chakra as Kisum, surprising both swordsmen. "I guess there really is no holding back anymore, huh, Zabuza-san," Naruto said cheekily before his face got serious. "Oh," Kisum said, now donning an evil smirk as he turned to Naruto, "this might be more fun than I expected." "Yak, no, I never thought that I would use this blade, but you forced my hand," Naruto exclaimed before pulling out a scroll that had the sealing of death written on it in blood red. The scroll, still rolling in the air, suddenly exploded in a poof as it fell into Naruto's hands. Zabuza and Kisum, seeing this massive blade, eyes went wide as they both shook in fear. "DT, that how do you have that sword?" shouted Kisum in shock as him and Zabuza looked in complete and utter horror. "The Dragon Slayer sword," Zabuza whispered before gripping his sword tightly. Naruto let out a maniacal laugh as he pointed a blade at each of his opponents. "Kami must be smiling down on me today." A truly terrifying grin settled on Naruto's face. To fight not one, but 2 of the 7 ninja swordsmen. "Shall we?" Kisum drew Samehada and Zabuza rose his blade. Naruto flipped the grip of his swords, so the blades were pointing out to the sides. Naruto swung his blades, sending a crescent of bright gold chakra at the older swordsman. Zabuza jumped over it, while Kisum cut right through the center of it. The crescent sent at Zabuza cut right through the trees on the coast, clearing a view for the 3 girls to see Naruto. Naruto was too focused on his battle to notice the worried expressions on his teammates' faces. On an instinct, he turned and blocked a strike that would have cut him in half horizontally. Kisum gave a smile as he pushed Naruto back a few feet. Naruto shoved Kisum's blade back and went for a kick to the man's ribs, but had to dodge a strike that would have cut through him and Kisum. Zabuza's sword collided with Kisum's, dark purple chakra rolling off of him. Both men made eye contact for a moment, then Naruto appeared in between both. The only hint that he moved was a disturbing sound that neither Kisum or Zabuza would ever forget. Naruto kicked out, nailing Zabuza under the chin with a front kick and Kisum in the cheek with a back kick. Both swordsmen flew back a few feet as Naruto landed in between them. Before Kisame could react, Naruto disappeared again, making that blood-chilling sound again as he appeared in front of the strongest ninja swordsman. Naruto brought his right sword, Shinigami, up in a diagonal slashing motion, which Kisame barely managed to block. He then spun around in a half circle, shoving off Samehada and stabbing Kisame in the ribs with his left sword, Izanami. Naruto buried the blade to the hilt, the sword cutting through many of Kisame's internal organs. Naruto then teleported behind Kisame and kicked him in the back of the head, sending the bleeding swordsman right at Zabuza. Zabuza looked ready to land a killing blow, but Kisame made a hand sign and yelled, "Suiton." Water shockwave. Kisame then shot a ridiculous amount of water from his mouth, creating a tidal wave that was over 50 feet tall. Naruto jumped into the air to avoid the wave, as did Zabuza. Kisame decided to attack Naruto, appearing in front of the blonde in a blur of blue. Naruto was barely able to block the overhead strike, but was sent flying towards the surface of the water. He broke through the surface and Kisame fell back to the surface. As Kisame landed, he made another hand sign and slammed his right hand on the surface of the water. Suiton. 1,000 hungry sharks. A wave of sharks swarmed towards Naruto, all of them swimming at breakneck speeds towards the blonde. Naruto looked up to see the horde of sharks and extended his arms. A golden vector appeared in front of his fists. It was about 5 feet in diameter, but released an earth-shattering wave of sheer force that blasted back the wave of sharks, as well as a large proportion of water. Kisame and Zabuza were locked in a deadlock when the water behind them erupted like a volcano. Naruto shot out of the gap in the water like a missile. He stopped about 20 feet above the surface of the water, tossed his swords to the side, and slammed his hands together in an ox sign. Ranton. Water tornado. The water below Zabuza and Kisame shot up and formed a massive tornado of water. Lightning crashed through the tornado, striking Zabuza and Kisame a few times. With Zabuza and Kisame getting caught in the center of the tornado, Naruto slammed his hands together again and shouted, "Suiton." Great Dragon Bullet. Naruto then spat out 10 streams of water, each about a foot thick. The streams each pierced into the tornado. 2 streams found each of the swordsmen, both of them blocking the shot with their swords. Naruto teleported the swords back into his hands and teleported behind Kisame, kicking him down into the now hectic water. He then teleported to Zabuza and swung both swords at the swordsman's back. Zabuza was barely able to block the attack, but it only limited the damage. Naruto's blades cut right through the executioner's blade and gave Zabuza 2 parallel cuts on his chest and abs. Before Zabuza could regain his bearings, Naruto teleported behind the swordsman and slashed a nice deep X into the demon's back. Zabuza gasped in pain as he landed on the surface of the water. Naruto was about to end the demon of the mist, but Kisame shot up with an upward slash aimed right at Naruto. The blonde teleported away, giving himself some space from the 2 Kiri swordsmen. Zabuza did the same, giving himself some breathing room from Kisame and Naruto. "You're good, kid," Kisame said as he pulled off the remains of his tattered cloak, leaving only his skin-tight undershirt, which had a few cuts in it. Samehada healed the wounds on its wielder as Naruto sat back catching his breath. "I can tell that isn't the 4th Hokage's technique." Mind filling in the blanks there. Naruto's breathing stabilized as he stood up straight. "My teleportation ability is far beyond the Hiraishin," Naruto said, a bit angered at how Kisame compared Ace's power to his father's teleportation jutsu. "I can tell. You don't have to go to a place you've marked. It seems like you are only limited to the places in your sightline, not to mention you can teleport your weapons to you. That's pretty useful." Kisame shifted Samehada to his shoulder. Naruto and Kisame were both eyeing each other when they heard demonic laughter coming from Zabuza. "Ah," Zabuza exclaimed, "it seems you bastards have woken me up." Kisame shifted defensively, making sure that Zabuza did not get a free shot on him. "You ever hear why I'm called the Demon of the Mist, kid?" Zabuza said, his chakra signature rapidly growing. Naruto and Kisame watched as purple chakra oozed from the demon's wounds and slowed his bleeding. Zabuza let out another laugh as Naruto eyed him. Kisame decided to answer. "The more damage Momochi takes, the more adrenaline his body produces." Kisame's eyes were bloodshot and his grin seemed larger than ever. "He is called the Demon of the Mist because the closer he gets to death, the stronger he gets." Zabuza let out another maniacal laugh as he dragged his blade across the open wound on his chest. The blade fixed itself with its wielder's blood. "I haven't felt this since I nearly killed the Mizukage." Zabuza's mask flew off to show his shark-like teeth and a massive smile. "I'll show you why I'm known throughout the elemental nations." Zabuza raised his blade in the air and made a hand sign with his other hand. "Inpo." Hidden mist jutsu. A thick chakra-filled mist started to cover the area, distorting Naruto's chakra sensing and not allowing him to see his surroundings. Naruto felt his instincts take over as he raised his blades to the side, blocking Kisame with his right sword, Shinigami and Zabuza with his left sword, Izanami. He then jumped slightly into the air, allowing the 2 larger blades to meet underneath him. Naruto tried to land kicks to his opponents, much like he did earlier in the fight, but didn't connect. Instead, he felt the two blades slam into him, Samehada shredding his chest, while the executioner's blade cut deep into his back. Naruto then ducked under another strike from Zabuza and heard it connect with Kisam's chest. Zabuza then went on a rampage, cutting both Naruto and Kisame in a fury of steel and blood. Naruto tried to teleport away, but Zabuza heard him appear and instantly zeroed in on him. Naruto felt Samehada shred his left shoulder and the executioner's blade cut off his right arm. Naruto acted on instinct and jumped into the air. He made a one-handed sign and yelled, "Futen." Great breakthrough. The hidden mist jutsu dispersed to show Zabuza and Kisame slashing at each other, Zabuza currently outmaneuvering Kisame. Samehada had busted out of its bandages while Zabuza was covered in Kisame and Naruto's blood. Naruto raised his left sword and fired off a crescent of aura. The attack moved much faster than his crescent of chakra. Zabuza took the hit, breaking a few ribs and leaving a nasty burn. Kisame tried to slash through the wave aura, but the attack cut a few inches into Samehada, then exploded. The sword let out a screech in pain as Kisame was sent flying back 20 fei. Both swordsmen snapped their attention to Naruto, who they were almost certain they had killed. Naruto landed on the surface of the water, blood covering his body and still missing his arm. Kisame and Zabuza watched in awe as Naruto's wounds all closed and his bones pieced themselves back together. Once all his other wounds healed, Naruto dropped his sword and put his left arm on the end of his severed right arm. Naruto's hand started glowing gold, then he did something that would be burned into the memory of both swordsmen. In one motion, Naruto shot his hand down, his arm regrowing as his hand moved. The sounds the regeneration process made were the stuff of nightmares. Naruto gave a gasp of pain as he finished regrowing his arm. Naruto rolled the joints of his new arm, releasing a few nasty pops as he worked the kinks out. Kisame and Zabuza were stunned as they watched the limb grow back. They expected Naruto to have a limit to his healing, but as they watched a blonde extend his regrown limb, they felt a very unfamiliar sensation. Fear. Naruto snapped his arms out, his sword shooting out of the water and into his hands. Sealing scripture then appeared on Naruto's arms. The black markings wrapped around his entire upper body like snakes. The markings burned red for a moment. "I can't use Mokuton out here, I'll deal with the repercussions for this later," Naruto thought as he felt his aura and Kai spike. "Hi!" Naruto yelled as the seals that Ace put in place to limit his aura and Kai opened, sending out a gargantuan shock wave. Perspective changed. Team 7. Satsuki, Naruto and Narumi had a front row seat to the most terrifying bout either of them could imagine. Naruto was going toe-to-toe with two of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Destructive jutsu had been flung, copious amounts of blood had been spilt, and a seemingly endless stream of chakra radiated from the fighters. It took Kisame and Zabuza teaming up on Naruto to force the blonde out of the fight. Neither Hinata nor Satsuki could see into the hidden mist jutsu, but they heard swords meeting flesh over and over again. They felt sick when they saw Naruto jump out missing an arm and having countless lashes and shreds covering his body. The Kashi's and Kushina fight with Haku had ended when the Haku's dome was broken by one of Naruto's stray attacks. Haku was nearly at her limit and Kakashi took full advantage, incapacitating the hunter nin and placing restrictive seals to keep her from escaping. When Kakashi and Kushina got to Narumi, Naruto and Satsuki, Naruto had just dispelled the hidden mist jutsu. Kakashi, Kushina, Naruto, Narumi and Satsuki were all going to interfere when they saw Naruto on the verge of death. The 3 girls nearly threw up when they watched all of his wounds close and his arm grow back. How can he do that? Satsuki stuttered as she watched Naruto's body piece itself back together. "Naruto-kun, what are you?" Naruko whispered as she watched Naruto stand there before the 2 petrified missing nin. "Tsunade-sama can't even regenerate to that extent," Kushina watched helplessly as Naruto did the impossible. As Naruto's sword shot back to his hands, Kakashi felt a slight disturbance in the blonde and ran to the 3 girls with him. He tackled them to the ground just as Naruto undid his seals. Kakashi took a majority of the shockwave, feeling the energy in the air smother him. Trees, boulders, and water went flying everywhere as bright gold energy whipped around Naruto. Kakashi watched as black energy erupted straight into the air in a pillar, sending out another shockwave equal in strength to the first. The energy was more sinister than the 9 tails and made Kakashi and Kushina fill with fear. Satsuki, Naruto, and Narumi weren't any better. They had tears running down their cheeks and were barely able to breathe under the weight of Naruto's newly released power. The 2 jonins watched as Naruto floated into the air. Black markings started to stretch all over Naruto's body. Naruto's eyes turned into deep azure blue with tears falling from the side just like in chapter 1. "It's time to end this," Kakashi heard Naruto's words, unable to move. All Team 7 could do was watch with bated breath as Naruto used a power they have never even heard of before. Perception change. Naruto vs Zabuza vs Kisame. Kisame and Zabuza were now only 10 feet from the shore after getting launched back by the blonde's power. They looked at each other, neither one sure of what exactly was going on. They knew that Naruto would be a tough opponent, but this was insane. The blonde had healed through countless injuries, had a chakra capacity that matched and potentially surpassed Kisum, and now released a power that they didn't recognize. Naruto floated in the air, 30 feet above the swordsman. His presence and appearance were absolutely terrifying. Zabuza felt more power from Naruto than he did when the fourth Mizukage allowed the Three Tails to take over. Kisum was in the same boat. The only person that could stand up to Naruto right now was Pain, and Kisum knew that the leader of the Akatsuki was not going to show up here. Kisum's instincts told him to run and not look back. But before he got the chance to flee, Naruto appeared in front of him. Naruto slashed up faster than Kisum could react. The cut was deep, easily 4 inches into the Akatsuki member. Naruto then teleported to the side and spun like a top, landing a kick to Kisum's face that sent him flying through the remains of the forest. Zabuza tried to attack Naruto, only for the blonde to teleport out of the way. Naruto appeared just past the blade and cut Zabuza's arms under the shoulder. He severed all the muscles in the swordsman's arms and kicked him into a large boulder that sat about 50 feet inland. Zabuza slammed into the boulder, indenting his body into the stone and feeling his ribs shatter and his skull crack. Naruto appeared in front of the demon and stabbed his swords into Zabuza's hands, keeping them extended. The blonde then opened his palms again and his knives appeared in his hand. They had been cut off when Zabuza landed the first strike. Naruto stabbed the swordsman through the feet, pinning Zabuza's last 2 limbs to the rock. Zabuza let out screams of agony as Naruto pinned him there. He looked up to glare at the blonde, but when he met Naruto's eyes, everything went black. Having incapacitated Zabuza, Naruto went hunting for Kisum. With Kisum, as Kisum turned around, Naruto grabbed him by the throat, crushing his trachea and threw him into the air. Samahada went to work immediately, fixing its wielder's throat. Kisum didn't have enough time to react as he heard Naruto teleport above him. Naruto wound up an axe kick that connected with Kisum's spine. The swordsman went screaming to the ground, only for Naruto to teleport there first. Naruto punched Kisum before he could reach the ground, knocking out a few teeth and breaking the man's jaw. As Kisum flew helplessly through the air, Naruto teleported to him again, this time kicking the wounded missing nin up into the air. Kisum was caught by Naruto while they were 50 feet in the air, and Naruto whipped the man by his ankles, sending him on a one-way trip to the forest floor. Kisum shattered the ground, leaving a massive crater where he landed. Naruto landed next to him and stopped his foot on the ground. A pillar of rock rose from under Kisum and knocked the missing nin in the air. Naruto wound up a punch, enhancing it with telekinesis, and slammed it right into Kisum's chest, shattering the man's sternum and sending him flying like a rocket. Naruto was about to pursue when his vision blurred. He felt his aura control slipping as his Kai flow stopped. Damn it, he got away, Naruto thought in anger as he just took a few deep breaths before sighing and used the last of his power to teleport back to his team, even though he knew Kisum survived. Chapter 9. The Bridge Part 1. POV change. Kakashi and the girls could only hear the end of Naruto's fight. The blonde had sent his opponents flying past them as soon as the fight came on land. They found Zabuza pinned to a boulder, barely alive. They were about to finish the man off when they heard the loudest hit and saw Kisum go flying in the distance. They expected to see Naruto shoot after him or intercept him midair, but instead, they heard the sound of Naruto's teleported behind them. They turned to see a dead, tired Naruto stumble towards them. He didn't have any visible injuries, but they could tell that he was well past his limit. Naruto took a few steps then collapsed into Satsuki's arms. He was panting and his body was well over the normal temperature. He tried to stand, only for his legs to give out and force Kushina to hold him up. Naruto-kun, Satsuki, Naruko, Narumi and Kushina said in sync. The four were still in awe of the blonde's power, but his well-being was their top priority. "Naruto, are you okay?" Kakashi asked while Satsuki and Naruko lowered Naruto to the ground. Naruto looked at his team again, letting a soft smile settle on his face. "You two were amazing." Naruto raised a hand to Satsuki's cheek before doing the same to Naruko and Narumi's. "For you two to hold off 6 Chunin is remarkable," said Naruto, giving them a gentle smile, making the girls blush as the girls looked down at him with sad smiles as tears of relief ran down their cheeks. "Hey, don't cry," Naruto said as he laughed a bit. "I did this to myself, so now you two are gonna have to finish the mission without me. Give Tazuna some shit for me," said Naruto with a chuckle as the girls couldn't help but laugh at that. Naruto motioned for Kakashi to come over, making him knelt down next to him as the blonde began to speak. "Kakashi-sensei, don't kill them," Naruto started, but before Kakashi could speak he continued. "I know that they did some bad things in the past, but I can tell that they truly have a good heart, well except for Zabuza and Kisum, but for the girl over there I can definitely tell that she is a good person." Naruto finished, surprising Kakashi a great deal. "What?" Kakashi was caught off guard by Naruto's request, but he was about to say, until he was cut off by Naruto. "No, I could tell that they weren't bad people, they are just in a bad spot. Heal their major injuries, but keep seals on them until I wake up, I want to talk to them." said Naruto as Kakashi looked at Naruto skeptically, but eventually relented. I trusted you in the fight, there is no reason for me to doubt you know. Kakashi saw Naruto give a small smile as he thanked him. Oh Gomendas, I just overdid it. I can't use that power for that long, Naruto said tiredly as he began to cough, his body ached like a motherfucker as he once again began to speak. Listen to me, I will likely be out for a few days. It will take my body some time to recover. Kisame won't be bothering us anymore, so continue with the mission. Don't bother using medical ninjutsu on me, just give me an IV and supplements once we get somewhere we can rest. Oh yeah, and when I wake up there had better be a goddamn good meal, Naruto said, earning chuckles from those around. He suddenly felt his eyelids getting heavier and spoke with the little remaining energy that he had. Well guys, it's about nap time, Naruto said before everything went black for him, fully passing out, resting into Kushina breast, ignoring the worried sounds coming from his team. Time skip 2 days later. Naruto slowly fluttered his eyes open as he felt the sun hitting him in his eyes and groaned out as he woke up. He felt his chakra network around mid-chunin as he cursed in his mind. Fan-bucking-tastic chakra exhaustion, that's is just perfect, Naruto thought sarcastically as he slowly reached his arm out and flexed it on, feeling 25 ths of his power. Naruto only sighed as he hopped from the twin-sized bed and suddenly his lower body felt cold, making him look down. Oi oi oi, what the hell is it opposite day? Where the buck is my clothes? Maybe it was those goddamn gnomes that sneaked inside and took my pants and shirt, those little bastards, when I get my hands on them, thought Naruto looking at the closet which he could have sworn saw it closed before he woke from his sleep. Sighing, Naruto made his way out of the unknown room and made his way downstairs. Scene change. Naruto was walking downstairs in nothing but his boxers and a few bandages around his arms. He was making his way into the kitchen, as arriving there his eyes met with an unfamiliar woman. This woman has long blue-colored hair. She wears a short-sleeved pink shirt with the end of the sleeves and the collar being red in color. She also wears a long blue skirt. This was the daughter of Tazuna, Tsunami. The two just stood there looking into each other's eyes until hers eventually traveled down until they reached a sight that made her blush hard with a massive nosebleed. Naruto looked her up and down and couldn't help but to look at her twice and had to admit she was boatful. Excuse, but have I died and went to heaven? Naruto asked as Tsunami snapped out of her thoughts and looked towards him in a confused expression. Do you know why? Asked a confused Tsunami, making Naruto give her a flirty grin as he began to speak. Oh, because you look so beautiful that I mistaked you for an angel. I mean, hot damn, you're the literal definition. Georges, your husband must be a really lucky guy to get himself such an attractive lady like yourself, said Naruto as Tsunami didn't know why, but she could feel her face heat up at the compliment. Thank you for the C compliment, but I don't have a husband, Tsunami said, stuttering. What the hell was wrong with her? She never felt like this before. It was a totally different experience for her. Someone has never made her blush to this degree, and yet he was doing it with just his words. You don't have a husband? Then what the hell is wrong with these men here? Are they gay or something? Yelled a confused Naruto, causing her giggle and blush. No, I did have an husband, but unfortunately he died because of Gato, said Tsunami as she put her hand to her mouth to try and stop her tears that was leaking from her eyes. Naruto, seeing this, walked over to her as he was his full height with him being 5'11" and her being 5'8". Naruto suddenly wrapped her into a hug as she felt his warm embrace and couldn't help but snuggle into his chest. I'm sorry that I brought up old memories, but I can't help and sit here watching such an angel like yourself shed tears in my presence, said Naruto with a small smile before he pulled back and wiped the tears away, making her blush slightly. The two just stood there with Naruto hand on her cheek, both looking directly into each other's eyes. Tsunami didn't know why, but she leaned in closer to Naruto, who was surprised but thought nothing of it and leaned in close as well. The two was then brought out of their shock when they heard groceries hit the floor, as the two looked back only for Tsunami to blush in embarrassment and Naruto to give out a sheepish chuckle. Before both of them were everyone of Team 7 with groceries in their hands. Well, not anymore. Kakashi just stood there like a statue before his lone eye started to tear up. Naruto looked at Kakashi, who looked at him with big shit-eating grin and a few tears from his eyes. Very good, my student, I'm so proud, thought Kakashi with a few tears that slid from his eyes, and gave Naruto a big thumbs up, making him chuckle. Meanwhile, with the girls in the group, to say pissed off was putting it mildly, they were boiling with rage and jealousy as they were glaring at Tsunami, making Kakashi turn to look at them with massive amounts of sweat falling down his face as he stared at his team before he looked towards Kushina, who had a pissed off expression on her face. He didn't know why but decided to put those thoughts at the back of his but for right now he was looking towards his now favorite student, who just bagged a cougar. He couldn't do anything but let out a huge grin, he was just so damn happy. Naruto, feeling the malice from the group of girls, and walked over to them before stopping in front of them, letting them see his godly body. For a second, they forgot what he did and started to drool with nosebleeds as they stared at his bare chest before snapping out of it and decided to glare at him, not speaking, but they all had a little bit of blood dripping from their nose. Naruto only sighed before turning towards Kakashi who had his book in his hands reading it letting out a perverted giggle every now and then. "Boy Kakashi, where did you put my clothes?" asked Naruto, making Kakashi look up from towards his book as he pointed towards the couch area where he saw his sleeveless black shirt, dark pants, and black boots. Naruto made his way over towards the living room and grabbed his outfit before taking it and walking upstairs. Naruto suddenly stopped before reaching the stairs and looked back down before sweat dropping as he saw the girls shamelessly drooling with their mouth open and small nosebleeds, making him sigh in amusement and turn to walk back upstairs. Time skip. Naruto was walking with Tsunami through town mostly due to Kakashi giving him order to follow them, but if you could look closely, Naruto could have sworn he saw a twinkle in the perverted man's eye when he gave him the mission. Throughout the entire walk Tsunami kept taking glances towards Naruto who just walked alongside her as she decided enough was enough and spoke. "Thank you for coming with me," Tsunami said towards the blonde walking next to her as they entered the town as he responded back. "It's no problem, I could hardly let a pretty woman like you go into a dangerous place like this alone now could I?" He answered with a lazy grin towards her, making her blush again at his slight flirting. He noticed that she seemed to be in a better mood than she had been in earlier during the little talk that he had with Inari. Flashback. Everyone was now at the dinner table having a nice conversation. Well, they were having a good conversation until a younger boy at the end of the table started to scream at them. "Why are you even here? You're all acting so happy and having fun when you're all going to get killed by Gato," said a angry Inari, who was now glaring daggers at the team as he continued. "You all probably live in a big house with food and a family waiting for you, but Gato killed my father and we had to go hungry sometimes," shouted the enraged kid with a scowl on his face. Everyone then felt the pressure in the room getting colder as they all turned towards Naruto whose eyes were cold and hard as steel making them shiver under the intense gaze as he spoke. "Did you better watch who you say that to, my life have been full of hardships. You don't know anything about suffering. Have you ever been kicked out of your own house in the cold? Have you ever had your father and mother ignore you because of a silly prophecy from a dumbass with a goofy looking toad? Have you ever come home only for your entire existence to be ignored by your so-called family? No? Then I guess not. Wake up to reality. You think that you have it hard here, where you sleep in a warm bed and get a meal 3-4 times a day. Well, there are kids out there who have lost both of their parents and are in orphanages while you sit here and bitch and moan about what pain feels like. Tell me," finished Naruto angrily as he balled his fist up so hard that it drew blood and got from his seat, making his way from the door, his hair covering his eyes as he spoke. "Tsunami, the food was great but I lost my appetite. I'm going out for a bit to blow off some steam so don't follow me," said Naruto hollowly, his voice filled with covered rage and sadness as he left the house, closing the door with a soft thud. The others in the house have various emotions. Inari ran up to his room, Tazuna looked towards Naruto in pity, Kakashi looked at the door where Naruto left and clenched his fist in sadness, Tsunami looked ready to cry as she stared at the door in shock and sadness, Mito and Narumi were openly crying sitting there. Satsuki was angry at his family as she looked towards the Namikaze trio and Kushina was now fully crying, more guilt eating at her heart. Is that truly what Naruto-kun went through? But he's such a nice guy and his own family though, Satsuki with anger, clenching her fist as she glared at the Namikaze family, not realizing that she added kun to his name. Naruto-kun, thought Kushina in sorrow as she stared at the door where Naruto left. Flashback end. Walking through, Naruto was observing the state of the town as they moved through it and noted that it was in a sad state indeed. There were people just sitting in the streets, looking absolutely hopeless and clearly too hungry to even stay standing for very long. He was drawing some fearful looks due to his style of dress and the sword, but the fact that he was walking peacefully next to Tsunami seemed to calm them down. Most people never even glanced at the Konoha forehead protector strapped to his thigh. As they made their way to a store that sold food, he could see clearly that the only food it had available was of poor quality and sold at obviously inflated prices. His respect for Tsunami's cooking went up a few notches. He had no idea how she had managed to make food that still tastes good with such poor quality materials. They had bought everything that Tsunami had picked out by now and were making their way down the street. So Naruto, was everyone like that in Konoha? Asked Tsunami Hoppeful, who was walking beside Naruto, who gave a small smile before speaking. No, not everyone. An old raiment stand owner and his young daughter were very kind to me and some other people that bothered to talk to me at least treated me like anyone else. In my experience, a person can be very intelligent and brave, but people as a group are often barely any better than animals were sometimes, since animals at least aren't likely to do much harm," said Naruto, who was smiling at the small ramen shop that was owned by the father-daughter duo. Tsunami, seeing his smile, couldn't help but smile at his smile, it seemed weird but contagious as well. The two was walking down the street. Time had lapsed into silence for a few minutes, each lost in their own thoughts until Naruto felt a small tug on his coat. Looking down, he saw a small and dirty girl who couldn't be more than 6 years old holding onto his coat. She looked terrified that he would be angry at her, but the growling of her stomach, which he could hear clearly, had made her desperate enough to approach. She had apparently seen that he was looking much healthier than anyone else here and was hoping that he would give her something. "Do you have any food, mister?" she asked timidly while cupping her hands in front of her hopefully. Looking at the small girl, Naruto was reminded of himself at that age. Giving her a smile, but not showing her his teeth, Naruto reached into his coat towards one of the seals and pulled out some apples and some nutrient bars and gave it to the little girl. When he deposited the food into her hands, the small girl gave a bright smile and thanked him before running off towards the small broken-looking house. "Naruto-kun, that was a very kind thing you did," Tsunami said approvingly, not noticing the add of kun to his last name, but before he could say anything back, there was a sudden commotion from the direction that the girl had run off to, and when Naruto turned to look, his face darkened with anger. "Watch where you're going, you filthy little brat!" An unwashed-looking and more than slightly tipsy thug yelled at the very girl that Naruto had just given the food to, his hand already raised to strike her. Naruto charged towards the location in a blur. Tsunami quickly ran after him as the blonde made his way towards the thug, catching his hand before he could hit the girl. Ignoring the angry-looking man trying to get his hand free, Naruto addressed the little girl. "Run along, sweetie." When the wide-eyed girl picked up her dropped apples and food bars and scampered off, the smile that Naruto had given her dropped off his face and he shoved the man into a nearby alley, with Tsunami following behind nervously. To Naruto, this was a perfect opportunity. He'd been intending to get some more information on Geto, and this piece of scum had very conveniently volunteered for an interrogation, assuming of course that he worked for Geto. As soon as the man got back on his feet, he rushed at Naruto, intending to punch him, but found his fist caught in an unbreakable grip. He tried to free his fist, but Naruto just tightened his grip painful and twisted his wrist, forcing the man to his knees, as the bastard thug spoke. "We're gonna kill you for this, you bastard. I work for Geto, and you've been warned that anyone who goes against us is gonna be killed." The man spat angrily. Naruto looked at him coldly and bared his teeth into a menacing smile. The idiot had just spared him the trouble of finding out whether he worked for Geto or not. "Tell me what Geto is planning to do about the bridge builder, and you might just leave with an intact body," he demanded as the man only said 2 words. "Fuck you." The man said angrily, twisting and turning trying to get his hand free as Naruto just shook his head in disappointment. "Wrong answer," Naruto stated as Naruto kept tightening his grip until the bones in his fist were crushed, causing the man to scream. Predictably, nobody came to check what was going on, being too scared to get caught up in anything dangerous. "You've got plenty of bones left. I'm going to keep breaking them until you answer me," Naruto stated coldly and without the slightest shred of sympathy. The man's finally broke and he started talking. "He's just going to wait for that ninja he's hired to get better and let him take care of it. Now please let me go," the man said with tears coming from his eyes, looking at Naruto with hope in his eyes. "Is there anything else?" asked Naruto as the man hesitated a bit before Naruto just squeezed harder until he spoke again. Wait, okay. He also told us all to gather at a spot several hundred yards away from the bridge a week from now, but I don't know what for." The man quickly started talking before any more of his bones ended up broken. "There, I've told you everything, now let me go," the man said, the crowd holding his broken hand. In a blur, Naruto pulled out one of his kunai and slited the man's throat, causing him to look at Naruto with fear as the man died, saying 2 words. "You promised," said the man before letting the fresh corpse fall to the ground as he fell dead. "I don't do promises with bastards," said Naruto with cold eyes that could freeze glaciers as he sealed the body within a scroll. As he turned around at the entrance of the alley, he saw a pale and shaken Tsunami staring at him with wide eyes and trembling hands. "Well shit," thought Naruto as he watched the woman who was trembling in fear as he spoke. "Sorry you had to see that, Tsunami," Naruto said quietly. Tsunami for her part was having trouble reconciling the image she had of the blonde as a gentle and caring man with the cold and brutal execution she had just witnessed. She knew of course that killing was a part of life as a shinobi, but seeing it was something else entirely. She didn't feel at all sorry for the man he'd killed, it was just the act itself that shocked her with its casual brutality. "And no, it's fine," she said, shooken up a bit. The two made their way home in relative ease as Tsunami started calm down with the events that happened earlier. They had nearly reached the house before Tsunami struck again. She was biting her lips nervously and blushing in embarrassment, but forced enough calm into her voice to speak clearly. Naruto-san, will you come to my room tonight?" asked a nervously blushing Tsunami as Naruto looked at her in surprise at the request before his expression turned into a teasing grin again. "Well, you are, and if the client wants to have her way with me, as a shinobi under your employ, I simply cannot refuse," said Naruto playfully, only to receive a slap on the shoulder by a blushing Tsunami. Shut up, Baka, I just wanted to thank you for walking with me," said an embarrassed Tsunami as Naruto chuckled. By this time they had reached the house Naruto and Tsunami went inside to put away all the groceries. After putting up the groceries, Naruto headed off for the forest where the rest of Team 7 was training. Chapter 10. End of Gato. It's been a few days since Team 7 had their fight with Zabuza, and ever since that day, they have trained non-stop to the point of them not being able to walk after. The team also noticed that Naruto had been acting strange lately. He had been missing for practice and been out lately, causing the team to get worried, but they shrugged those thoughts off as him getting training. Time skip. Night time. Everyone was at the dinner table eating Naruto as they all was talking and making small talk. Even Inari, who was slowly breaking out of his shell as they heard the front door open, revealing Naruto, who had a smile on his face as he entered the dining room. Narumi was about to speak, but Naruto held his hand up, stopping her. "Everyone, I apologize for not being around lately, but I've been out helping my little angel," said Naruto, causing them to look in confusion, but the girls heard that he said "my little angel" and got angry, thinking that he found a girlfriend, but before they could even speak, Naruto stopped them by raising his hand and spoke. "I know what it sounds like, but it's not like that. Latina, you can come inside now, don't be shy," said Naruto as they once again got confused until they saw a small head peek around the corner until it was shown a little girl who with a smile on her face as she was dressed in a beautiful kimono. Hello everyone, my name is Latina Strife, it's nice to meet you," said Latina as she bowed, causing the girls in the room hearts to melt before they all rushed to her and enveloped her into a hug as Tsunami looked towards Naruto. "Naruto, is this the same girl from a couple of days ago?" whispered Tsunami to Naruto as he nodded with a sad smile and spoke into her ear. "Yes, I found out what happened to her parents. Her father died of an unknown illness and her mother was killed by Gato," whispered Naruto as Tsunami's eyes started to water, causing Naruto to pull her closer to him as the woman put her head into his chest. "Don't worry, Tsunami-chan, she will have a better life from now on, I promise," said Naruto, causing Tsunami to nod in his chest as she pulled away and spoke. "Naruto, meet me in my room tonight, I want to give you a special reward," said Tsunami with a seductive grin as Naruto smirked before squeeze her ass, causing her to squeal in excitement. "Oh, trust me, I'll be there, so be ready for the time of your life," said Naruto, his tone lustful, causing a shiver to go up Tsunami's spine as they both went back into the kitchen, only to see that Latina was sleeping on Kushina's chest as they saw everyone was getting ready for bed. "Kushina, could you take Latina to the girls' room?" said Naruto as Kushina nodded as she looked around, and when no one was looking she walked up to Naruto and gave him a kiss on his lips, which he happily returned, causing her to moan before they broke apart as Naruto gave her a wink, causing her to blush and rush to her room. Time skip. Tsunami room. Tsunami was waiting in her room for Naruto as she started to get nervous. Could she really go through with this? Could she really betray Kaiser? She was cut out of her thoughts when she felt muscular arms wrap around her as she turned to meet Naruto's blue eyes, which held worry inside them. "Tsunami-chan, are you sure you want to do this? I don't want you to do something that you don't want," said Naruto softly as she turned towards him and kissed him softly on the lips before breaking apart and speaking. "It's okay, Naruto-kun, everything is now in the past. I'm sure Kaiser would want me to move on," said Tsunami, causing Naruto smiled and hug her tighter. Naruto lifted Tsunami up bridal style, causing her to eat, and walked over towards the bed and gently laid her on it, causing as he smiled towards her and took off his shirt, which showed his rock-hard abs as he climbed into the bed, causing her to blush brightly before she took off her shirt, which showed her D-cup breast, making him grin seductively as they both shared a deep and passionate kiss before they broke apart as Naruto spoke. "Are you sure about this?" Naruto asked her just to be sure as she smiled at him. "Yes, now take me," she urged, getting desperate to get what she wanted. Lemon, not needing any more convincing, he returned her kiss and rolled over so that he was on top of her. It was something of a surreal experience for Tsunami to have to be careful so that she didn't cut her tongue on his teeth, so she let him win their little tongue duel without putting up much of a fight. When he moved his mouth down to her neck, she couldn't help letting out an excited shudder at the feel of those teeth scraping lightly over her neck, knowing that they were easily sharp enough to pierce through her skin. She covered her breasts with her hand self-consciously when she saw his eyes roving over her, the way a hungry lion might look at a gazelle. Without saying a word, he grabbed her hands and raised them over her head and lowered his mouth to her right nipple. The movement of a hot tongue over the sensitive nub of flesh made her take a sharp intake of breath that grew into excited panting when she felt the gentlest scrape of inhumanly sharp teeth against it. The fact that she tried to free her arms from his grip but felt as if she was trying to move a mountain only aroused her further. He paid equal attention to both of her breasts and left her aching with need by the time he moved on. Her panties were already a soaked mess when he hooked his fingers into the waistband and took them off, with Tsunami eagerly lifting her hips to help him. The deep whiff he took of her crotch embarrassed her, but she didn't protest when he started moving his face closer. He had released her hands by this time, and she was desperately grasping at the futon, wanting him to get on with it already. She kept her teeth clenched tightly to prevent any loud moans from escaping her as he started licking up what she'd released so far, avoiding any highly sensitive areas. She continued to grit her teeth together when his tongue began to probe her nether lips and slip inside of her, only moaning deep in her throat to prevent herself from being heard by the entire house. When he moved his attention to her swollen clitoris, she quickly raised her hand and sank her teeth into her own forearm to hold in the moan's screams, the other hand finding its way to the top of his head and pressing it harder against her crotch. It didn't take even a minute before she was shuddering with the after effects of her orgasm. Panting, breathless and almost ready to pass out, she couldn't believe that he'd gotten her this worked up already and they were technically still at the foreplay stage. Due to her lack of attention, she never even noticed him before his weight was suddenly pressing down on her again and she felt the monster between his legs pressed against her quivering nether lips. She'd known he was big when she felt him through his underwear the previous night, but now that he'd removed it, she realized just how big it was. She was intending to tell him to be careful because there was no way that all of that was going to fit inside her when he pressed his lips against hers again, making her taste herself on his tongue while he rubbed his rod against her, getting it lubricated so that it would slip inside her without trouble. He took hold of her hands again, having noticed earlier that she liked it, as he lined himself up with her entrance and pressed inside with the head, making her moan into his mouth. The deep, satisfied growls coming from his throat as he penetrated her slowly excited her with the thought that he was going to slam himself fully inside of her any second now. As he penetrated deeper and deeper inside her, stretching her insides to the point of being painful, she was distantly grateful that he hadn't done that, as it would have no doubt hurt her badly. There was no restraining her moans and screams as he kept going deeper every time she thought that there couldn't possibly be any more room inside her, moans and screams which were fortunately muffled by his mouth. He stayed buried inside of her fully for a short while as she gasped for breath and squeezed her hips around him, letting her adjust to his size before he moved again. He returned to plundering her mouth when he began to move, causing her to return to moaning into his mouth. When he began to speed up and growl in a way that told her that he was getting close, she tried to let him know that she didn't want him to release inside her and possibly get her pregnant. The way that he was holding her down and covering her mouth prevented that however, and the frantic bucking of her hips served only to push him deeper inside her. Despite that though, she still felt her own orgasm approaching again and she was helpless to do anything except let him do as he pleased while she climaxed and felt him filling her up with his seed, prolonging the pleasure she felt as her fleshy inner walls tried to wring every last drop out of him. Lemon end, you shouldn't have done that, I don't want another baby. She panted out when the uncontrollable shuddering from her orgasm subsided, her face and hair sweaty. And you won't have one. I've placed a seal on myself that prevents me from getting any woman pregnant. Naruto assured her, his voice much more composed than hers. He was expertly hiding just how stupid he felt for not telling her about that before he nearly caused her to freak out by making her think that he was trying to impregnate her. A seal? Tsunami asked in confusion, having no idea what that was. It's a ninja thing that I use to make sure I'm incapable of having children until I turn it off, don't worry about it. He dismissed airily. Well that's good, how about we go for another round, suggested Tsunami as Naruto smirked before pinning her to the bed. Time skip. Morning. The sun was rising on the land of waves. The pair of lovers lay in each other's arms, their faces only inches apart, sleeping peacefully after their previous night of passion. Tsunami's eyes blinked open to spot a cute naked young blonde snoring softly next to her. She smiled as memories of last night flooded her mind. She leaned in and kissed him on his slightly parted lips. Naruto's eyes peeled open to see his blushing Ravenette close her eyes and smile at him. Good morning, Naruto-kun. She whispered, softly caressing his whiskered cheek and rubbing it with her thumb. A tired smile formed on Naruto's face. Good morning, Tsunami. He replied, leaning in to kiss her good morning. Naruto rolled over and looked at the clock on the wall. I have about 10 more minutes with you before we should start getting dressed, said Naruto as a grin slipped his face. Then let's make it count, she said, scooching closer to her young love and putting a hand on his chest, rubbing it slowly as she leaned in to kiss Naruto on the cheek. He put an arm around her hip and turned his head to kiss her on the lips. Lemon, she moaned in unison against Naruto's lips. Naruto placed a hand on her left breast, squeezing gently and rubbing the nipple with his thumb. She moaned softly as the heat rushed to her face. Naruto moaned back and placed a hand on the back of her head to deepen their kissing. He probed her mouth, sliding his tongue in and out. He moved both hands to Tsunami's hips and crawled on top of her, his lips still moving gently against hers. Naruto broke away and smirked at Tsunami, eyeing her. She smiled back, a bit of their mixed saliva trickling from the corner of her mouth, a deep blush decorating her cheeks, eyes brimming with love and desire. Naruto smiled in pride at this lewd version of Tsunami that he was able to dish out of her with only a few moments of kissing. Hey baby, you want to buck one last time before I have to leave? He asked, rubbing the back of his hand up and down her cheek. Yes, Naruto-kun, she said, wrapping her arms around his neck and pulling him into another heated tongue-tangling kiss. As his lips moved in perfect rhythm with the horny widows he started grinding his hips into hers, his re-hardening manhood hitting against her wet pussy. She opened her legs, tilting her hips upward to give her little lover plenty of space. Naruto swirled his tongue against Tsunami's as he rubbed his penis head against the inside of her slit, rubbing it into the sensitive folds of her clit before dipping it slightly into her vagina. He went back and forth between rubbing and penetrating, which drove the mother crazy. She groped and squeezed his back muscles as she whimpered and cried in pleasure against Naruto's lips, which muffled them. Tsunami tried moving her hips against Naruto's. He responded by sliding his hand under her and grabbing hold of her ass cheek, squeezing it firmly. Tsunami cried out in ecstasy as he manhandled her while he pleasured her. Finally, Naruto broke away and rammed his Herculean throbbing boner with pre-cum at the slit into the older woman mercilessly in a single thrust. Ugh, Naruto groaned, wincing in pleasure as he continued his thrust inside of the woman. Tsunami squealed, squeezing Naruto's back with tearing force as her legs encircled him, trapping him. Naruto began thrusting his hips, driving his manhood as deep into the older woman as it would go. Tsunami let out high-pitched moans every time the head of the fox's cock violently hit against her womb. Ugh, yes Naruto, more ugh, she moaned. Naruto paced both his hands to the sides of her head, holding it in place as he kept up the assault on her womanhood. He leaned his face in, pressing his forehead against hers. What is it, Tsunami? Tell me what you need, he whispered huskily through pants. Is it this? He growled as he sped up his thrusts, going harder, pummeling her slick cunt. Yes, Naruto, that's exactly it, keep going just like that, Tsunami whined, moving her hips in an attempt to keep up with Naruto. Her tongue rolled out of her mouth as she panted. Naruto smiled at her lewd display and leaned in to wrap his tongue around hers and caress it. She moaned and made out with him for a few minutes before parting. Tsunami spread her legs as her young love plowed her into the sheets. She could feel herself reaching her limit and Naruto could feel himself reaching his. It was only minutes before Tsunami flung her legs back around her young lover's waist, her feet on his thighs, pushing him in as deep as he could go as he deposited more of his manhood. Naruto held Tsunami close, pushing himself up against her and showered her face with kisses as he kept booking his cock up into her, pounding his head against her womb as the long line of sperm came shooting out of his manhood and coating her womb, marking Tsunami as his own. He collapsed onto her, his tool still inside her, spilling the last droplets of seed he had left. They both looked into each other's eyes and shared a satisfied smile. They kissed a few times before Naruto stood back up and pulled out of her, watching his seed ooze out of her lower half. Lemon end. They started throwing their clothes on and cleaned up the bed. Naruto unlocked the door and after receiving a kiss on the lips and went outside the room. Upon leaving Tsunami's room, Naruto's bluish-greenish eyes met Kakashi's pitch-black eye. Kakashi for his part started to gape like a fish out of water and pointing at him in an accusing manner. Then Naruto H how, W when, A and how. Shouted Kakashi, who started to lose his shit at seeing his student come out of a women's room and a rather hot women's room at that and he wasn't even fully dressed. Yo Kakashi, what's up, asked Naruto as he stared at Kakashi with a huge grin on his face. Kakashi suddenly dropped to his knees and looked towards Naruto with pride that he never felt before which just rushed into his system. It seems that the student has truly surpassed the master. Naruto, teach me your ways, said Kakashi in a comically way, making Naruto sweat drop at seeing the crying man as he sighed and just went around his crying sensei who was calling him back in a comical way. Time skip. Wave prison. Zabuza and Haku were wrapped in sealing paper. Their wounds had been treated for the most part, but the restrictive seals placed all over their body didn't allow them to naturally recover as fast as they normally did. They had been stripped of their weapons and sat in the dark for what must have been close to 1 week, but the worst part was that they couldn't scratch the goddamn itch they had on the tip of their nose for the past 2 days. Suddenly, the door opened, blinding both of them. Once their eyes adjusted, Zabuza couldn't help but panic as Haku scrambled to shield her father figure. Naruto closed the door behind him and gave a small smile as he looked down at his captured adversaries. What do you want? Zabuza growled, you come here to gloat about your victory. Naruto sat down, leaning his back against the closed cell door. He let out a slight chuckle as he coughed a bit. You know, that was the first time my team got to see me use those abilities. Naruto coughed more violently this time, my body still isn't used to it. The power floods my system and destroys it at the cellular level. My body has to constantly regenerate the damage, but eventually it gets overwhelmed. I can only use a fraction of that power's full capabilities. If you think I'm bad, shit, you should see the one who taught me. Haku and Zabuza were confused by the blonde's friendly nature. Naruto looked over at Haku. She was about 2 years older than him and quite pretty, even in the dark, dirty cell. I hear you are from the Yuki clan. Naruto raised his hand, forming the Yuki clan symbol out of ice. Haku and Zabuza's eyes shot open as Haku wanted to ask all the questions that flooded her mind. Naruto beat her to the questions. Before you ask, no, I'm not a part of the Yuki clan. I am pretty adept at ninjutsu, Zabuza-san can vouch for me there. Zabuza let out a small chuckle. Isn't that the understatement of the year, Zabuza said, getting a grin from Naruto. I was able to develop the technique on my own, though I eventually got to look through the Yuki clan's jutsu scrolls and add them to my arsenal. I would have loved to test my Hyoten against yours," said Naruto as he looked down at the snowflake in his hand for a moment. "So, I heard you guys got caught on the wrong side of the Kiri civil war." Naruto's words made them flinch. "I know that the current Mizukage isn't too fond of Kekkei Genkai users. I saw the carnage firsthand a few years back," Naruto said, which got Haku and Zabuza's attention. "What were you doing in Kiri?" Zabuza asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. "I wanted to see the horrors of war with my own eyes." "It changes you." Naruto looked down, remembering the countless victims he saw. The mountains of corpses and shallow graves that lined the roads while visiting back. "I wanted to make you two an offer." Naruto looked up to see the two Kiri ninja looking back at him. "I know a few people that are high up in the rebel forces. I could send you to them so you can fight for your homeland." Zabuza and Haku nearly jumped at the offer, but there was something that confused them. "Why would you do that for us? I nearly killed you a few days ago, now you are offering to help me?" Zabuza wanted the offer to be legitimate more than anything, but he didn't understand why the blonde would help them. "I can tell you still have a loyalty to Kiri still. You still wear their headbands, wear their clothes, and wield their weapons. I heard the story of how you tried to end the revolution by attacking Yagura directly. You forced him to release the three tails in the fight if the rumors are true." Naruto noticed Zabuza shying away, obviously being reminded of his failure. "There are certain people in the world that deserve a second chance. You aren't monsters, no matter what they think about you in Kiri. You stood for what you believed in, Zabuza-san, and you were merely born with an ability that they feared, Haku-san. It is me and my team that you have wronged here, so I think it is within my right to offer you a chance at redemption." Haku and Zabuza listened, hanging on every word the blonde said. "I had a good time fighting you, Zabuza-san. You tested my swordsmanship and my courage. It said that you don't truly know someone until you fight them. When I fought you, I saw someone that got the short end of the stick on more than one occasion. You aren't the demon of the mist, you were just a normal guy that was gifted with abilities that few could match. You were forced to assume the title that was placed on you and weren't allowed to choose your own path." Naruto's words were sympathetic, shocking the Kiri ninja. "Mei Terumi is the leader of the Kiri rebellion. She is pretty close with my brother, she and Kiri could use your help." Zabuza couldn't help but choke up at the offer. He and Haku had bounced around for years, just trying to survive, but to be offered a chance at atonement, they never expected the opportunity. "Thanks, Naruto," Zabuza said softly as Haku silently cried. "Hey, it's the least I could do. Just do me a favor and don't die. I want to face you again when the time comes. I don't want my kinjutsus to get sloppy," Naruto said as he got up from the floor and dusted himself off. Zabuza let out a chuckle. "I'm not sure I could handle another fight. I barely survived the first one," Zabuza said as he let out a loud laugh. Naruto walked up to the two Kiri shinobi and placed a hand on each of their shoulders. He released the restrictive seals, and the sealing paper fell to the floor. Haku and Zabuza got up and stretched a bit, both of them still feeling their injuries from their fight against Naruto and Kakashi. Naruto reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of paper that had the dragon's Oculus symbol on it. "Once you find a rebel camp, give them this and tell them you want to talk to Mei-chan. When you meet with her, tell her what happened and that I sent you to reinforce the rebel forces." Naruto opened the door, motioning for them to walk out. Zabuza and Haku made their way out of the prison. They each grabbed their weapons and belongings that had been confiscated and walked to the exit in silence. They cleaned themselves up and changed their clothes into a spare set of their battle uniforms. They then bought some food and medicine with money Naruto gave them to help on their journey. Small Timeskip. After an hour or so, they met Naruto, Team 7, and many of the wave villagers at the docks. They were going to take a ship to the westernmost island in the land of water. The villagers didn't look at them with contempt or disgust. Rather, they all wore expressions of respect and understanding, something Haku and Zabuza had never been experienced. Naruto walked up to them, now wearing an extra pair of his battle clothes. Naruto extended a hand to Zabuza, who gladly took it. "Take care, Zabuza-san." They broke the handshake, each having a smile and a new respect for the other. "We will meet again, one day." "I'm sure we will," Zabuza said cheekily. "Don't go off talking about our fight much. I've still got a reputation to uphold." Naruto smiled as did Zabuza. Both let out a hearty laugh that made them feel the pain from their fight again. Naruto then moved over to Haku. Rather than shake his hand, Haku pulled him into a kiss. She was a bit shorter than him, so she stood on her toes. After she broke apart, she rested her head on his shoulder for a few moments. Naruto smiled at her actions, being the physically affectionate type he is. Satsuki, Kushina, Naruto and Narumi all had death glares aimed at the Hyoten user, while Zabuza had his own at Naruto, but the two didn't notice. She broke the hug with Naruto and gave him a deep bow. "Thank you for everything you have done for us, Naruto-kun," Haku said, still at the bottom of her bow. "I don't know how we could ever repay you." she said as Naruto smiled. Don't worry about it, Haku-chan, Naruto said, a smile stretching across his face which caused a blush to appear on her face. Just make the most out of the opportunities that you have, and we can call it even, said Naruto. Naruto got a smile out of the Hyoten user, as well as his sensei and team, all of which amazed by the forgiveness and maturity Naruto demonstrated. Haku and Zabuza made their way onto the ship and the bridge was pulled in after them. The ship set sail shortly after and Naruto watched as the ship made its way into the sunrise, happy with how things ended up. Naruto then turned to the rest of the team who looked at him with angry glares causing him to recoil in a bit of fear as he looked towards Kakashi, trying to ignore the glares from the girls as Naruto spoke. So what are we going to do about Gato? He needs to be dealt with now, said Naruto spitting that name out like it was venom. I sent my summonings to do a search so he should be at the bridge tomorrow if I'm not mistaken, responded Kakashi as Naruto nodded before they headed off. Time skip. Wave bridge. Team 7 was on the lookout for Gato and his men who were said to be in great numbers and all had weapons, as they were all on guard. Suddenly a large group of men which was estimated to be around 1,000 thugs who all were armed with different types of weapons. As every single one of them cleared a path to show in a rather short-looking man with shaggy brown hair and sported a pair of small, circular black glasses. He wears a black suit with a purple tie, a yellow shirt underneath his coat and closed-toed shoes as the midget spoke. DCH, that damned famed demon of the mist couldn't even kill these brats and 2 weak adults, although I'm rather glad that he left us the redheads and the black-haired girl alive. They will be good to play with, Gato said with a lecherous grin as Kushina was about to rush in and kill the short weirdo, but she was pulled back into the chest of Naruto with his hand around her waist who held her protectively with his hair shadowing his eyes. For a moment saw a glimpse of his eyes that were ice cold and the pupil was red as Naruto let her go and walked out alone, ignoring his teammates' shout of protest as he kept walking, each step causing the ground to crack underneath his feet as Naruto spoke, his tone angry and cold. Gato, you have done and caused horrendous acts to this town, slave trade, rape, murder, the death of my daughter's mother, and you said that you were going to have fun with my girls. Your death will be the most agonizing, said Naruto, still walking towards the thousand man, his EMS eyes activated and colder than a glacier. Gato only scoffed. You bucking brat, didn't your parents teach you manners to your betters? Whoever brings me this kid's head will get extra 500,000 plus one of those little girls, said Gato as the thugs grew devilish grins as they charged at Naruto. Naruto tapped the seal on his shoulder which poofed out his Dragon Slayer's sword as he rushed at the incoming men. What next to everyone was an absolute slaughter. Almost half of the men were dead, the only amount of remaining men were Gato, and 612 men left as they all started to distance themselves from Naruto in pure and chaotic fear. Gato for the most part was shitting himself at this very moment as he looked at the carnage ahead of him. Gato looked at Naruto like he was a devil in human clothing, and the look in his eyes were making it no better. Those red demonic eyes that looked to be staring deep into his entire soul made him lose whatever confidence he had before that. 388 men killed by a single person. Who doesn't even have a stretch, said Gato, who was scared shitless as Naruto was looking into his eyes, his Mangekyo Sharingan active and out for blood. You know, Gato started Naruto, his voice loud so that they could hear him. You killed someone precious to my little girl. You might known her as Aiko, am I right? Asked Naruto as Gato bit back his fear and spoke. Oh yeah, that bitch, I remember that bucking bitch, she's that pretty whore that I raped before I killed her. I sent someone down there to kill the little brat, but the dumbest couldn't even do that. I was going to kill her in front of her mother. You should have seen her begging for me to not kill her daughter. Pathetic, said Gato with a huge smirk as there was not a sound on the entire bridge. The Konoha group was looking at Gato with the most hate that could literally burn an entire village down. Naruto had his head down the entire time as he slowly lifted his gaze to meet Gato, who saw his eyes and fell on his ass as the rest of the men who saw Naruto's eyes could only think of a demon as Naruto marched closer to them, causing them to step back in fear as he relished the most potent killing intent that they felt in their lives. Then all of you shall die where you stand, said Naruto darkly before going through hand seals. Tiger, rat, horse, monkey, dog, dragon, ram, shouted Naruto, putting his lone arm in the with his palm open air as the Konoha team eyes widened at those same hand seals, but Kakashi was confused. What is Naruto doing? Asked Kakashi as Kushina turned towards him with a worried look on her angelic face as she spoke, her tone fearful a little but mostly worried. It's a unknown lightning jutsu Naruto created that is S rank or maybe even higher, it's similar to your Chidori, but this is in a whole different league, said Kushina as Kakashi jaw dropped. What the hell are you lot standing there for? Kill that damn brat, shouted Gato as the thugs were too afraid to move. Suddenly the rain started to pick up and the sky started to change. They were confused as the sun was just out, so why was the cloud so gray? Kakashi looked up at the rain which started to pour down, but this rain didn't feel like regular rain, it was more heavier and dense as if it was chakra. Everyone was snapped from their thoughts when lightning started to be heard until a vicious thunderous roar that could be heard for hundreds of miles across the entire wave as Naruto just kept the lightning in his hand and turned to the rest of the thugs. An ear-splitting roar could be heard in the sky as the thugs looked up only to see something poking from the sky which looked to be a large reptilian head. Every single thug weapons dropped from their hand as they all fell to their knees, even Gato. Their hope was dead, they were going to die, they sure of it as they looked towards Naruto whose eyes were colder than ice that was glaring at them with so much hate it sent chills down their spine as he spoke. Come to me, let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching, if you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day, bye.